PennLive Steelers beat reporter Jacob Klinger checking in with you all from Indianapolis at the Indiana Convention Center, where the NFL Combine is getting started this week. Players arrived earlier today and the previous day, I believe, just starting to come through for meetings and interviews and things like that. No one's taken the field for much of anything, but we did get to talk to general managers and head coaches today. That included, obviously, Steelers general manager Kevin Colbert. And there are three things that really stuck out to me from what he said, in addition to a few others. Firstly, he talked about how the team plans out its salary cap. He said the team goes about 4 years out in advance in terms of projecting where they'll be, who will cost how much, and where they'll be relative to what they expect the NFL salary cap number to be in a given year. It rose by $10 million again this year. The reason this was interesting to me was not that they do this. I think most NFL teams do to a certain extent. It's just that it was in stark contrast to some of the things you heard from other GMs. For instance, Howie Roseman, the Eagles general manager, was talking a lot about how the team's outlook and approach to personnel really changed year to year, particularly in the early 2010s when they were cycling through quarterbacks and they really didn't know what the makeup of the team was going to look like or what their chances were to win year to year. The Steelers have been perennial playoff contenders really for the better part of the past decade or so, and that's been reflected, Kevin Colbert said, in the way that the team has been able to prepare. And he did touch on this back in Pittsburgh a few weeks ago when he said, yeah, we do project out, several years at a time. However, usually you're not talking about more than 20 players that are going to be contracted that many years in advance. So that stood out to me here at the Combine as the teams really start to get in the nitty-gritty of putting together their roster for not just the draft, but potentially undrafted free agents and how they fill out, those other 30-odd positions on a given roster. Another thing that struck me is that the team appears to, the Steelers do, get after their draft scouting a little early, at least relative to how other NFL coaches talked about where they are in terms of their draft preparation and scouting. Now, this could just be because Mike Tomlin doesn't talk at the NFL Combine, but from the understanding I've gotten from when he's talked in the past, it's been that the Steelers really shuffle through like a quick review of the season, of the coaching, of various things, clock management, analytics, different players, and then they start looking at potential draft prospects. A lot of coaches here hedged, and they may have been doing just that, saying, we haven't really gotten into the weeds on particular players. That may be less the case for position coaches who aren't really largely available here, but to me it really struck me as interesting that the Steelers appear to be, again, different in that case. Lastly, Steelers general manager Kevin Colbert was talking about Alejandro Villanueva, who is an exclusive rights free agent and has been the starting left tackle for them for the past year and a half since he replaced Kelvin Beachum in 2015, I should say. The Steelers can really sign him at the league minimum if they'd like, somewhere around $600,000 for another year. However, Kevin Colbert left the door open for the Steelers signing him to a multi-year deal. Now, Pittsburgh has a little bit of depth in that position, and that Marcus Gilbert holds down the right tackle spot, and Gerald Hawkins and Ryan Harris are waiting in the wings for the Steelers. Gerald Hawkins was a fourth-round pick last year, but he did his shoulder in training camp and went on the IR. But they did really like him in training camp, and he was visually impressive to my relatively untrained eyes. And Ryan Harris is a veteran Super Bowl winning tackle who can play either side. So the Steelers don't necessarily need Alejandro Villanueva for the long term, but they could save themselves some money in the longer term if they do go ahead and lock him up. It's just a matter of what's happening between the Steelers front office and Alejandro Villanueva's agents at this point. But free agency does open on March 9th. If the Steelers don't offer him a deal then, was an exclusive rights guy, so they really should be able to lock him up whenever they want. But there is the possibility that he is here for the longer-term future, and Kevin Colbert was very complimentary of the job that he's done this year. Ben Roethlisberger took the Steelers as a team took the second fewest sacks of any team in the league, and Villanueva was protecting the blind side all year. So that's his future. That's all from me at the NFL Combine for today, but I'll be checking back in throughout the week as we see literally hundreds of players come through here. The NFL draft season is well underway, and we're just keeping our head above water, but bobbing quite nicely.